Hello, Global Voices. I am Jer, the tech lead, the web developer, the mostly designer for the Global Voices websites. And in this video, we are going to talk about widgets. Widgets in WordPress and widgets on Global Voices. So it might be a bit of a long video. I want to go over a bunch of different things, the basics of widgets and what they work, how we use them on Global Voices and our theme, and some of the common widgets and widget content that will be useful in your Global Voices site. And by Global Voices site, I'm mostly talking to Lingua site managers, people who are managing the sites. If you're just writing posts or translating, you probably don't need to know this. But if you are actively managing a site and managing the content and what shows up at the top and bottom and on the sides of the posts, this is for you. So to get started, what are widgets? If we look at an example of a Global Voices homepage, this isn't the live homepage, but it's an example. We could see some different places where there are widgets. So there's the featured posts, and so we're looking at the new version of the featured post that's full width with nothing beside it. That's a little bit of a change for those of you who remember how it was before. But after that, we have a bunch of widgets. So we've got a row of 3 widgets here, or one widget with 3 things inside. We've got another row of a widget here with promoting a special coverage category. We've got a widget here listing posts. We've got some promoting projects. And then we get to the posts. So these are widgets that have been added in between the special coverage and the posts. And then again, we can see at the bottom, there's even more widgets down there. So let's look at an example without any widgets. So here is another vision. If we look the test Spanish site, I've removed all the widgets. So you can see the essence of the site: header, special coverage, posts, but specifically on the homepage, we can add widgets in between to customize it. And so this is helpful when you think about things like the AdVox site, which of course has its own needs and thus its own widgets, content that makes sense there. So each site can have its own stuff. And this also applies to Lingua sites. So they might want to have different content. Some of them might want to have a list of the recent AdVox posts or the recent bridge posts, because that helps highlight them and highlight the mission of Global Voices. Other ones might find that if they list the AdVox posts on their own, there's not enough of them and they end up being really old, and so it's not useful. So on some level, it's up to each site, each Lingua site, each language, each project like AdVox and Rising Voices, what they want to put there. And the nice thing is you can manage it right inside WordPress. So here we are looking at the widgets area. You get to this by logging in and then coming to appearance and then widgets. And that brings you to this space that we'll be talking about. You can also get there if you're on the front of the site, up in the bar at the top, which is orange here. Normally it's black. And then under admin, there's some useful links to things like users and themes, but widgets isn't there. So if you go admin widgets, you can jump straight there from the front end without first coming to the dashboard and things. But you're gonna have to be logged in, of course, and you'll have to have access. If you can't get here, it's okay, it's not for you. If you think you should be able to edit this and you can't get to the page, then contact me, Jer, or contact your supervisor, your manager, and let them know, and we'll make sure you have access if you're supposed to. So what is going on this screen? We've got 2 main things. On the left, the available widgets, and on the right, the available sidebars. And sidebar is a word that usually would mean something besides something else. And that's because, back in the day, uh, WordPress sites were almost always a list of posts, and then next to it was a sidebar. So that's why they're called sidebars. Although in this case, many of our sidebars are full width, right? There's all these different places where the full width of the site is incorporated as a sidebar. So basically, sidebar just means a place where you put widgets. And more than anything, it's these things on the right. You see they have a name. You can open and close them. If you open it, you see the widgets that are inside, and then you can open and close each widget to see its configuration and its settings. You can also drag them around. I can take this one called text and drag it up to change the order. And I can also drag it to a different sidebar. So if I take this, I saved it. It did a little motion. If you saw, I'll do it again. When you move it, there's a little animation that shows you that it's moved. And then if I come back to the site, Oh no, I broke it. Sometimes if you do play around with it too much, it'll break things. Yeah. Okay, here, let's try it again. We'll reload the page and we should see the change, which is that the widget, which was previously below, mixed in here, is now up at the top because I moved it. Okay, and so the way this, one of the things to keep in mind here is that each sidebar, you're like, what is it? Homepage intro 100%. Like, what does that mean? Well, there's a little text. So in this case, it says widgets in this sidebar show at the top of the homepage just below the title. Widgets will be full width, and that's what 100%. This is my little way. I named these, and so 100% means it'll be the full width of the page like this. You can see it fills it all the way, whereas 50% would be half width, and et cetera, et cetera. And we've got especially some that are 33% width. So we can see this is a full width one. And then some of these, this one is an example where they're 33%. So we've got in this sidebar, which is called homepage top grid 33%. We could see that there are 3 widgets and they're automatically at 33%. And while I'm on that topic, I'll say something about it, which I'm just opening my developer tools here with a specific purpose, which is to show you how they are responsive. And I'm actually going to make this smaller so we could see it better, right? I'm just zooming out on the page. But as we shrink the page, they're always going to do something sensible, right? So we can see the image gets bigger because now we're getting towards like a cell phone. But if we come back and look at these 3, right, those are 33%, but at a certain point, they become 100% because it's too small. But it'll happen automatically, and there'll always be something good looking, and eventually you get this dramatic look here. Okay, so that's to point out that the 100 means 100% at desktop width, right? When you're looking at it on a laptop or a desktop computer, and 33%, etc. Eventually, they all become 100%, but we name them based on what will happen at the largest size because that's where things are floating next to each other. At mobile, everything is pretty much stacked on top of each other. All right, so that is the basics of widget sidebars. Okay, the other half of this is, of course, the widgets themselves. They're all lined up here. So these aren't specific widgets, these are types of widgets. So we have a lot of them that you're going to want to ignore. So I'm sorry this list is so long. The ones that, honestly, the ones that start with GV are usually the ones you're going to want to use. So if I put this text one back and we're going to look at the homepage intro 100% just because that's the one at the top. So if I take one that says GV country cloud, okay, and it says show a tag cloud of country categories. Okay, so if we put that on the up in the homepage, that copies it, right? It's still here because it's the type. Now we have an example. And if we come and reload the page, I'll close this, we'll see that we get a random mix of countries, okay? And in the widget, there's only one setting, how many? So if we think, oh, that doesn't look like enough, we can type 40, save it. Once it's saved, we reload. All right, not too complicated. Country cloud, and then if you want to get rid of one, you can just drag it off. You can also drag it down. There's a section called inactive widgets. So if you dragged it into here, it would sort of save it indefinitely, and you could come and put it back up like we had some for job openings and things you could see. All right, so that's the widgets. I won't explain every single one, but I'm going to go over a few of them as we go forward so that you could be a little bit familiar with them. But coming back to my script here, great, 33. One thing to note is that in many cases where you have a full width section, the background will change depending on how many they are. And so if we take a look at this and scroll down here, we see that we have one widget. This is one widget that's full width. This is another one that's full width. This is another one that's full width. And if you look at the backgrounds, you could see that there is a white background on top, then a lighter gray, then a darker gray, then a lighter gray. And this is not part of WordPress widgets, but this is the way the GV WordPress theme, the design of our site works, is that when you have multiples, they will make sure that each widget row that's full width will have a different background color. And basically it'll just go back and forth between these 2 shades of gray. And then it'll go back to white when it's time for the posts, which is like the main default content, right? Like when we were looking here, it's all white because there's no widgets. But when we have enough widgets, they'll automatically go back and forth. So I just wanted to mention that so that it's not a surprise. You can't control it particularly, but the good news is it should control itself. And so it should give a nice result even without any effort, which was the goal. Okay, so if we look at all our widgets, right, we see that there's some that are above the features and some that are after the feature, right? The featured posts are automatically going to be there, this big window showing several images. And so what we have is certain widgets that are above it. Those ones don't have a background color. And you can see there's a 100% and then a 50% that both come before. So really, you can use this 100% widget area to add whatever you need if you want something above. Like on GV English, we're thinking about maybe before you get to the posts, we should explain what Global Voices is and show a nice image that describes Global Voices. We're toying with that idea. And we can do it if we want to by putting it at the top. If you have a very, very important message, you could put it at the top. And then you have some that are after and before the posts, right? And this is what we're filling up here. So the two things that are automatic are features and posts, and then we put the widgets in between. Another major type of widget that isn't really shown here because we're not using it yet is the actual literal sidebar next to the posts. And we used to use this a lot. And if you go to most of the current Lingua sites, you'll see that they still have it. And this is something I'm going to clean up. I'm going to be messaging with the Lingua section heads, but right, these widgets that are next to the post. And what we found when we tested it in Global Voices English was that having these widgets here, people very rarely clicked on them, and it made them click on the main posts less. So we decided not to use them anymore. But it's a long-standing tradition in GV that we have them. And the new system, which is updated to not need them and to let them be gone, as you can see here where there's nothing, it's just an open space, because there's a lot of content here for people to read. And so we want to let them just have an easy reading experience. But if you have any widget in this sidebar called General Sidebar Widgets, then what will happen is that will show up in the sidebar. So I moved one over, and we'll see that when I reload, not only is there a widget, right? Now this is on the side, but the main posts are moved over. So you automatically change the layout in a major way when you do that. And we recommend you don't. So basically what we want to do is move all of the widgets out of general sidebar widgets, have that nice clean experience. And the other nice thing is because of mobile, when you open up the site in a mobile view, you don't get the same order as you expect. Things are the things that are in the sidebar normally, which seem like they're equal to this list of posts, actually would come all the way at the bottom. So it's not really what you want. So the idea we have is that for a site like French, we ask ourselves, these widgets that are on the side, should they be above? In which case they could go below features and above the posts, like all this stuff on this site we were looking at, all these ones. Or maybe, depending on what it is, maybe it goes below. Because, of course, we can also have content that's below the other widgets, right? All kinds of stuff, maybe a list of people. There's lots of ideas. But what we don't want to do is when someone's trying to read our posts, distract them with this kind of thing. Okay, so there's lots of decisions to make. I wanted to talk about that because it's a bit of a nuance of the current system. And it's important for understanding if you're taking a site that was set up earlier and sort of cleaning it up for this new system, moving widgets out of the general sidebar widgets will have a dramatic effect on that part of the site. All right. How are you doing? I hope you're doing okay. We're going to continue with a few examples of commonly used widgets on GV. So one of them is the text widget, and there's actually two, and I'll open them both up for you. One is called custom HTML, and one is called text. And the thing about them is they're very, very similar. They both have a title and a box, and basically both are just put whatever you want. It's like a tiny post, right? And you can see if you use the one called text, you even have the buttons to add media. You have the visual and HTML editor like a post. So that's great if you really want to use those features. The custom HTML one is there because sometimes if you just really want certain content that is
really specific and precise, and you're worried because sometimes changing between visual and text will break certain types of HTML, and you might want to have special stuff going, then you could use the custom HTML. Or if you're just more comfortable, it has the color syntax highlighting, which is kind of nice if you're writing raw HTML. But either way, you can usually use either one and just use the text section, like a post, to edit the custom content. Um, Right. So these are both there, and what they're great for is so different types of things. So if you look at these custom HTML, we've got a whole set of content, and this is the one that's over here describing where we have an image, a banner image, and then a featured image, and then text, and that's all just flat out in here as HTML, right? Um, the other way you can use it is to hold a shortcode. And I'll talk about shortcodes in a bit and some examples of shortcodes, but text widgets are really useful for holding that for things where there is no special widget type up here. Okay, and speaking of special widget types, let's look at a couple of them where instead of using shortcodes or a text widget, we are going to use a custom one. For example, the one I wanted to use was GV random users. So I'm going to drag GV random users up to here. Ooh, my computer's getting a little hot. I'm going to turn on my fan. All right, so I saved the GV random users widget, and you see it's going to show avatars of random active users. It's going to show 8 of them, and we could choose the size, and we could choose a title. So for our title, maybe we say GV is made of people. Uh, okay. And then we'll make sure it saves. It's saved, and we'll reload, and we'll see a grid of nice user avatars. Great. All right. And so this widget is nice because it automatically uh, aligns all these avatars so they look good. And if we come down to different sizes, we could see that it automatically keeps everything resized in an elegant way. And then when there's enough space, it goes to putting them all on one line. All right, so that's a good example, and it's a good widget. Like keep it in mind because it's really handy to highlight your translators, highlight your contributors, and it also gives you that nice link to view all contributors page. So that is the random users, and you can take a look at these other ones. All the ones that say GV are the ones that you're most likely to use, aside from custom HTML and text. Another good GV one is the GV uh, posts list, which my brain will find soon. GV RSS post list and GV post list. Okay, so I'm going to start with GV post list. This one will show a list of posts similar in style to okay, and there's the contributors page, but I'm going to go back. Similar in style to the main list of posts. All right. And so it gives you a few different options, and they're very similar to the other one called RSS Posts that we'll look at in a sec. But what this lets you show is you could choose what it shows, either all recent stories, which usually isn't very useful, but it's the default just in case. The more useful one is either popular. So you could say popular yesterday, popular this week, popular this month. So let's say popular this month, and I'm not sure if this will work too well, but we'll see if it works. And I'm going to move away the random users for now. And if we reload, we should see a nice list of posts that are popular recently. Okay, there are no popular posts, so it's falling back on recent stories, which is a bit of a bumper. So let's try a different one. Let's try category. And this lets us show posts from a specific category. So if I take posts about Australia and save, all right, we should see a nice list of relevant posts. So the thing to do with this specifically, right? Why are we spending so much time on this? Is that there is we could see us Crocodile Dundee jokes. We got Australia. Is that you could find the advocacy. So you could find advox posts, right? And this is the way, if you want to promote advox in your Lingua site, this is the way you pick the category advox, and then you'll get all advox posts. Now, there's a few other things, options that we can look at, and we could just take a second. One of them that's not completely obvious, but it's really useful is the compact option. So if you say use compact and tick that box, it's going to make them smaller. It's going to make them look like the mobile. So we can see here, it's really big. So I'm going to make it compact. And now they're going to fit a lot better. And we'll be able to fit 3 in a much smaller space. A little bit slow. The defaults always have to show the featured image and to show the taxonomy terms, which means categories, right? So we see we have the smaller headlines, we've got the featured image, we've got the title, and we've got the category. If we want, we can show dates and we can show a more link. So let's just change some of these options and take a look at what we get as a result. Point is, you could control it. What you want to do is find a nice mix that fits in the space. So if you've got a big, wide, full width space, that's one thing. If you're instead working with one of these 33% bricks, which I encourage you because you can fit more stuff, it'll make more sense either to have, so for example, you could have one thing that isn't compact, where compact is turned off so it's big, and then it'll look like this. Or if you want to have 3 headlines in a similar space, you make it compact and you consider turning off the featured images, right? Which also takes up less space. All right. Few more quick things that are useful here. You've got a custom heading. So if you want to have a different text up here, like it says recent Advox stories, but you could write like freedom of speech stories if you really wanted to. There's a caption, and that will show above the posts and below the title. So I might write Advox is the best. Okay. And then there's banner URL, and that's to show a little image. And it's a little tricky, but here's the thing is on the main Global Voices site. So you go to Global Voices in English. We are using this in this case, right? That's what's driving this Advox Rising Voices in the Bridge. These are categories in RSS. And these are the banner images, these little logos here. So what you can do is right click on the logo right on the live site, and then you say copy image address. And what that's going to do, if I come back to widgets and I paste, it's going to take the URL that was on that image and put it right here. So that's just a good trick to quickly get those images for Advox, Rising Voices, and the bridge, or anything else that's on the homepage, like CMO, the observatory might be one in the future. So if we save here, and I'm actually going to save one more, which is hide custom heading above widget. If we reload this page, we'll see that we get the nice logo, but we still have the title. And I had put it at freedom of speech stories, but actually, now that I have the image there, I no longer want the title because it's a duplicate. So that's why we have this box that says hide custom heading above widget. All right, thank you for humoring me. I actually did a bunch of work cleaning this particular widget up because it was a giant mess and the settings made no sense and it didn't work well. And now it works much, much better. So I'm happy to teach you about it. And also, if you're running a Lingua site, I think this is one of the widgets that's the most useful because you are likely to have categories you want to highlight. And so it's a good way to highlight categories. Or if what you want is to highlight your popular posts, which is actually being removed in this new layout because there used to be popular posts next to the featured posts. If that's what you want, this will be the best way to add them back, is to come add this GV posts list widget and then make the type popular yesterday, popular this week, or popular this month. And then you can use all the other settings to make sure that it fits in the layout that you want. And so here we go. We've got a nice Advox widget. All right. So there's one more widget, one more specific widget I want to show you. And it's so similar that we don't have to stress out too much. I'm going to come here to where there's already a copy. GV RSS Posts list. And if you look, you'll see it's almost the same. You've got compact. Is it compact? Are we showing images? Are we showing dates? Do we want a custom heading? Do we want a banner URL? Do we want a caption? And how many posts? Of course, I didn't talk about that. But of course, if you're using a non-compact one, often you'll want to put just one. But this is RSS. And if you don't know what RSS is, God bless you. I'm not going to try and go all into what RSS is. But basically, it's a URL that gives you a list of recent posts from a site or a category on a site. And so what RSS lets us do is pull in, and instead of showing recent posts or popular posts, we could show posts from a specific RSS feed. For example, on the English GV site, we'd show posts from the Advox GV site, right? Which is that whole other site with its own RSS feed. So that when you click on the post, instead of going to the post in the category on the site, we're on the different site. Okay, so that's what RSS is for. And if you ever want to embed an RSS feed, this is how you do it. And it'll show almost exactly like the other types of posts from the posts widget with almost the same options. So there you go. Um, Beautiful. Oh, thank you for watching this so far, but I have a little more. If you need to go, I love you. It's okay, maybe that's enough. But I want to talk about shortcodes. Shortcodes are a really useful, incredibly useful, because if we think of like we had the country cloud, we had the posts list, we had the random users, those are like just a few widgets, but there's a lot more things you could show that aren't widgets. They're just shortcodes, and the thing about them is they're so much easier to develop and maintain that we have a lot of them. And so here is an article. If you come to the community.globalvoices.org site and search for shortcodes, you'll find this very detailed article that has information about all of our shortcodes. And so you can see this is the format they take, is a code like this with the square brackets and then some options. Okay, and if we look at our widgets, the thing is you can put these in text widgets. So if we look at this text widget, I'll make it bigger so we can look at the text. We have a shortcode we could see because of the square brackets. And then we have the name of the shortcode, which is GV underscore term underscore promo. That's a term promotion. And then we have some options inside. And so the way the options work is like HTML. If you know HTML, it's not too surprising. If you don't know HTML, it's not too hard to learn, because basically you have an option name and then an equal sign and then the value you want to use in brackets. Okay, so in quote marks. So taxonomy equals GV special, and that's the type of categories. The term equals Pride 2021, right? And so term equals, and then the slug of the category in quotes. And then in this case, we're saying large equals 1. And so if we come and try to find this widget, we'll see what it is. And it's this one, Pride 2021. So we said, do a term promote. So this is a category, a special category. And so we're doing a promotion of this special category. We told it the type of category we want to use, which is GV underscore special. We told it the specific category we want to show, which is Pride 2021. And then we gave it a special flag, a special option, large equals 1, which is why it looks gigantic. The text is big, the image is big. So if we come back to the shortcodes, the one I just showed you was called GV term promo, and it's right here. And so you can see in the here, we have an image of what is the outcome. We have a description of how it works. And then we have some examples. So here I show an example with a plain category, like Advox is a plain category, and one with a special category, like Observatory is a special category. And then in this box, we show all of the configuration options that you could try. So for example, we say term equals, and we don't use it in this one, but we could use image URL and excerpt as extra options optionally. All right, so this is one of the really useful ones, because if you want to replicate what's on the live English site, this is what you're going to want to use. Specifically on the English site, and so I will come back to just Global Voices. We promote these special, we used to have special coverage and it was these pages and they were very messy and hard to use, and now we have special coverage categories. So these are all special coverage categories and we promote them using the short codes that I'm talking about. And if you've been messing around with the special coverage, you can watch my previous video on this channel if you want to learn all about it. But the instructions are all in this Google guide. And if you're a Lingua site manager, you should already have this Google Doc guide to the whole thing. But it was already explaining the GV term promo short code. But now I've moved it into the general documentation, and you can use it for just about anything. And so keep it in mind. A couple other ones I wanted to talk about in terms of shortcodes that are on here are the post and page promo. So if we come up back to the top, GV post promo, this is really similar. in that it's going to give you actually a very similar layout with the image and the title, but instead of using a category or a term from a taxonomy, it's going to use a post or a page. And it's called post promo, but it's good for pages too. In WordPress, technically pages are a type of post, but don't worry too much about that. All you really need to know is you say GV post promo, and then you put the ID. And so the post ID is a number, and whether it's a post or a page, it'll have an ID and it'll work because effectively they're almost the same. And just to put one more thing about that, the way you can figure that out is to go to the edit screen for the post you want to embed and then look at the URL. So up here, I'm editing this page and the ID is 1776. If I go to edit page from here and I look at the URL, it says question mark post equals 1776. So that's the number. You take that and you say GV post promo ID equals and then that number, and you'll get a nice embed. By default, it'll look just like posts look on the homepage, like this. But just like posts on the homepage, it's all responsive. So if you put it in a widget that's small, it'll get tall with a big tall image on top of it instead. And that's the same as what happens if we come and look at the site in a mobile view, right? All of our posts eventually have the same layout, right? So you're basically triggering that layout by having it in a small space. And I won't dig too much into that because I love you and I don't want you to be overwhelmed. That is widgets and sidebars on Global Voices. You did it. Thank you. We hit half an hour. I'm so sorry. Thank you very much. I hope this was helpful. Things are always changing. This won't be perfect forever. Some things won't be the same in the future, but hopefully I gave you a good rundown and you can come back, look at this shortcodes guide in the future. I'll try to keep it up to date. I'm also got this WordPress widgets and sidebar guide on the community that's brand new and it's going to have this same information but kept up to date. It's not full yet. I made this video to put in here because while things are still moving, I don't want to write it all down. But instead, you can watch this video. If you come back here, you might be watching this video on this very page. Hi, welcome to the page. But in the future, it should be updated with any important updates of things that have changed anyway. I'll let you go. I'm Jer. Thank you for your work on Global Voices and taking the time to watch this video. And I hope you have a wonderful time creating and being creative on Global Voices.